The heavy click of the titanium lock echoed through the room like a gunshot. The safe door, custom-built, supposedly uncrackable, worth bragging about at every party, swung open smoothly on its precision hinges. Miguel Cortez stood there, one hand still on the handle, his phone in the other. Around him, 200 of Palm Beach's wealthiest stood frozen in absolute silence. Champagne glasses paused halfway to lips. Conversations died mid-sentence. Even the jazz band in the adjacent room seemed to sense something had shifted. Clifford Dane's face went through 5 expressions in 3 seconds. Confusion, recognition, disbelief, calculation, and something very close to fear. 60 seconds ago, this was impossible. A party trick. A rich man's joke designed to remind everyone in the room exactly who held the power. Now, a 17-year-old kid, the housemaid's son, had just unlocked what Clifford's own security team swore couldn't be cracked. How did this happen? How did someone invisible to this room suddenly become the only person anyone could see? What happened in that room will restore your faith in underdogs everywhere. Stay with me. Clifford Dane's estate occupied 6 acres of prime Palm Beach oceanfront real estate, the kind of property that required security gates, a staff of 20, and a net worth that most people couldn't comprehend even if you explained it slowly. The main house was 15,000 square feet of imported Italian marble, floor-to-ceiling windows, and the kind of architectural excess that magazines called stunning and normal people called unnecessary. The pool was infinity edge. The garage held 12 cars. The wine cellar required climate control systems that cost more than most people's homes. But the real centerpiece, Clifford's favorite conversation starter, was his study, walnut paneling, first edition books he'd never read, and mounted prominently against the east wall, a custom-built titanium safe that gleamed under recessed lighting like a piece of modern art. Clifford loved that safe, not for what it protected, though it held cash, documents, and a collection of rare watches, but for what it represented: control, security, the ability to afford protection that ordinary people couldn't imagine. At 53, Clifford had built an empire through real estate development, tech investments, and a lifestyle brand that sold the image of success to people who wanted to believe they could buy their way into his world. His net worth fluctuated somewhere north of $4 billion, depending on market conditions and which Forbes list you consulted. But more than wealth, Clifford had cultivated something else, a personality built on proving he was smarter, faster, and more successful than everyone around him. Every conversation became a competition. Every interaction, an opportunity to demonstrate his superiority. His parties were famous for this, not just for the guest list or the champagne or the entertainment, but for the games, the challenges, the wagers that let Clifford show off while pretending to be generous. Tonight's party was typical Clifford excess. 200 guests filled the mansion. Tech CEOs, hedge fund managers, real estate developers, a few celebrities who added glamour to the networking. A jazz quartet played near the bar. Servers in crisp uniforms moved through the crowd with trays of champagne and hors d'oeuvres that cost $50 per bite. And everywhere, the unspoken hierarchy was visible. The guests wore designer everything. Suits that cost 5 figures, dresses that required appointments, watches that could fund college educations. They belonged here. They understood the codes, the references, the casual mentions of private jets and vacation homes. The staff, meanwhile, moved like ghosts, necessary but invisible, present but not acknowledged. They knew their role. Make the luxury function smoothly while never reminding the guests that someone had to work for all this to happen. Among them, carrying a silver tray of champagne flutes, was a teenager who'd grown up watching his world from the margins but never truly being part of it. If you've ever watched rich people treat success like it's a birthright, you know exactly what this party felt like. Hit that like button if you're ready to see someone humble this ego. Around 9 o'clock, Clifford decided it was time for the evening's entertainment. He'd been drinking just enough to amplify his natural showmanship, moving through the crowd with the easy confidence of someone who'd never encountered a room he couldn't command. He gathered guests toward his study with the practiced gesture of a ringmaster calling an audience. "Ladies and gentlemen," he announced, voice carrying over the jazz and conversation, I want to show you something special." The crowd followed, curious and already amused. Clifford's challenges were legendary. Last month, he bet $10,000 that no one could identify the vintage of his rarest wine blindfolded. The month before, he'd offered $5,000 to anyone who could beat him at golf on his private simulator. No one ever won. That was the point. The study filled quickly, guests pressing in to see what game Clifford had designed this time. He positioned himself next to the titanium safe, one hand resting on its surface like a proud father. "This," he said, patting the vault door, "is a custom-built Centurion 9000. 16-digit encrypted passcode. Biometric fail-safes. My security team spent 6 months testing it. We brought in consultants, actual hackers, to try to crack it. No one succeeded." He paused for effect, letting the impossibility sink in. "So here's my challenge. Anyone who can open this safe in under 5 minutes gets $10 million. Cash. Right here, right now." The room erupted in excited murmurs. Phones came out to record. A few people laughed at the audacity. $10 million. Just sitting there behind a passcode. "Are you serious?" someone called out. "Completely," Clifford grinned. "But let me be clear, this isn't happening. The best minds in cybersecurity couldn't crack this. So I can make this offer because I know my money is completely safe." A tech CEO stepped forward, game for the spectacle. He studied the keypad, entered a few random sequences, and shrugged when nothing happened. "Worth a shot," he laughed. A hedge fund manager tried next, making a show of feeling the energy of the safe before admitting defeat to generous applause. It was theater. Everyone knew it. The challenge wasn't meant to be won. It was meant to demonstrate, once again, that Clifford Dane had access to things others didn't. Security others couldn't breach. Resources others couldn't touch. The crowd was laughing now, enjoying the spectacle, waiting for whatever came next. Servers continued moving through with drinks, invisible to the guests who were too focused on Clifford's performance. One of those servers was Miguel Cortez. Miguel had learned to be invisible in this house. It was a survival skill, developed over 12 years of watching his mother, Rosa, work as Clifford Dane's housemaid. He was 17 now, helping his mother serve at events like this to earn extra money for college. In 4 months, he'd graduate high school. His grades were good. Excellent, actually, but scholarships only covered so much, and community college was a realistic path forward. Miguel had grown up in this mansion, the way some kids grow up in their neighborhood park. He knew every room, every hallway, every quirk of the place. While his mother cleaned and organized and made Clifford's life run smoothly, Miguel had observed everything. He'd watched Clifford's children grow up with tutors and private lessons and summer camps that cost more than his mother earned in a year. He'd seen the casual waste, the food thrown away, the barely used gadgets abandoned, the expensive things treated as disposable. But Miguel had also learned to see patterns, to notice details, to understand systems. When Clifford's youngest son's PlayStation broke 3 years ago, and the tech support team couldn't figure out, Miguel had fixed it. A corrupted hard drive. Simple to diagnose if you knew what to look for. Clifford had barely acknowledged it, just nodded and walked away. When the smart home system glitched last year, locking everyone out of climate controls during a heat wave, Miguel had traced the problem to a router configuration error and solved it in 20 minutes. The IT consultant Clifford called had estimated 2 days of diagnostic work. Miguel wasn't a prodigy. He was just curious, observant, and good at solving problems. He taught himself coding using free online resources. Fixed broken devices he found at thrift stores. Understood technology not through expensive education, but through hours of patient trial and error. Now, carrying a tray of empty glasses back toward the kitchen, he paused near the study door. The crowd had gathered inside, their laughter and excitement spilling into the hallway. He heard Clifford challenge. $10 million. An uncrackable safe. Miguel knew that safe. He'd seen Clifford open it a dozen times over the years, usually when he thought no one was watching, retrieving documents or adding to his watch collection. Miguel had never tried to memorize the code. He hadn't needed to, because Miguel had noticed something Clifford hadn't realized he'd revealed. Let the maid's boy give it a try. The voice came from inside the study. One of the guests, a man Miguel didn't recognize, gesturing toward him with a champagne glass. The words were loud enough to carry, mocking enough to draw attention. The room's energy shifted. Some guests looked uncomfortable. Others smiled, sensing entertainment. A few pulled out their phones, ready to record whatever embarrassment was about to unfold. Clifford turned, saw Miguel standing in the doorway, and his face lit up with theatrical delight. "Why not?" Clifford announced, spreading his arms wide. "Come on in, Miguel. Let's see what you've got." It wasn't an invitation. It was a setup, another way to prove the distance between their worlds. The housemaid's kid, fumbling with technology he couldn't possibly understand, provided a moment of comic relief before the party moved on. Miguel felt every eye turned toward him, felt the weight of being made spectacle. He could walk away, should walk away. This wasn't his world, and these people would never see him as anything but help. But something in Clifford's smirk stopped him. That casual certainty, that assumption that Miguel belonged to a category of people who didn't threaten, didn't challenge, didn't matter beyond their utility. Miguel set down his tray. "Okay," he said quietly. His mother, Rosa, stood near the back of the room, her face a mix of worry and pride. She knew that look in her son's eyes, knew he'd made a decision that couldn't be unmade. Miguel walked through the parted crowd toward the safe. Drop a comment if you've ever been underestimated because of where you came from. Miguel's about to show this room exactly what happens when you dismiss the wrong person. Miguel stood in front of the Centurion 9000, the titanium surface reflecting his face in warped distortion. Behind him, 200 people watched with varying degrees of amusement and anticipation. Someone started a timer on their phone. 5-minute starts, now. Miguel didn't touch the keypad immediately. He studied it. The 16-digit interface, the small LED display, the biometric scanner below. The safe was impressive, genuinely sophisticated, the kind of security that required serious expertise to breach through conventional hacking. But Miguel wasn't planning to hack anything. He pulled out his phone. Is he seriously Googling how to open a safe? Someone laughed. Maybe he's calling tech support. Another guest added, triggering a wave of chuckles. Clifford stood off to the side, arms crossed, enjoying this. Every second that passed was another confirmation that his money was untouchable, his security impenetrable. Miguel ignored the commentary. He opened his phone's calculator app and stared at the screen, thinking. The thing about Clifford Dane was that he was predictable. Miguel had noticed it years ago, the way some people notice that their neighbor always parks in the same spot or their teacher always wears blue on Fridays. Clifford used personal dates for everything. Everything. His credit card pin? Miguel had seen him enter it at restaurants a dozen times when his mother accompanied the family on trips. It was his oldest daughter's birthday, 0715208. The smart home system master code? Miguel had watched him reset it after the router incident. His wife Catherine's birthday backward, 11041972. The wine cellar code? His own birthday, of course, 03291971. Clifford thought he was being secure by using important dates. What he was actually doing was creating a pattern anyone paying attention could decode. Miguel pulled up the family information he'd absorbed over years of quiet observation. Clifford had 3 children. Emma, born July 15th, 2008. Jack, born March 3rd, 2011. Sophie, born December 20th, 2015. A 16-digit passcode. 3 birthdays. Multiple possible combinations. 30 seconds, someone announced. Miguel's fingers moved across the calculator, running through possibilities. Birth order forward? Youngest to oldest? Some variation that meant something to Clifford's specific psychology? 45 seconds. He approached the keypad and entered his first attempt. 0715208032011. The safe beeped once. The LED flashed red. Wrong. Scattered laughter from the crowd. Someone said, "Nice try, kid." Miguel didn't react. He was already calculating the next variation. What if Clifford had used the birthdays in chronological order, but with the years compressed differently? 55 seconds. He tried again. 07158-30311115. The safe beeped once. Red light again. Time's almost up, kid. Someone called out, not unkindly. Clifford's smile was returning to full confidence. Of course this wouldn't work. Of course the maid's son couldn't. Miguel entered a third sequence. This time, he'd removed the zeros. Just the significant digits, strung together in birth order. 715083311115X. He needed one more digit. 58 seconds. What would Clifford add? What single number meant something to a man obsessed with his own importance? Miguel added a 1. First place. Number 1. The winner. 71508331112015. He pressed enter. The safe beeped twice. Different tone. Higher pitch. The LED flashed green. 59 seconds. The lock mechanism disengaged with a heavy, definitive click that silenced every conversation in the room. Miguel wrapped his hand around the handle and pulled. The titanium door, worth more than his mother's annual salary, swung open smoothly on its precision-engineered hinges. 60 seconds exactly. The room didn't just go quiet. It went vacuum silent. The kind of silence where you can hear your own heartbeat, hear the blood rushing in your ears, hear the fundamental shift in reality settling into place. Miguel turned from the open safe and looked directly at Clifford. You use your children's birthday for everything, he said calmly. Even your security. And then chaos. If this moment just made you say yes, smash that subscribe button. We find these underdog victories every single week. The room exploded. Gasps and shouts overlapped. Phones that had been recording now zoomed in on the open safe. The green LED light. Miguel's calm face. Someone yelled, "OH, my God," loud enough to echo off the walnut paneling. Clifford stood frozen, his brain visibly trying to catch up to what had just happened. His mouth opened, closed, opened again. No words came out. A woman near the front started laughing. Not cruel laughter, but the kind of shocked, disbelieving laughter that escapes when reality breaks expectation. Others joined in, a wave of sound that wasn't quite celebration, and wasn't quite mockery, but landed somewhere between the two. Did that just happen? Someone asked no one in particular. He actually did it. Another voice answered. The kid actually opened it. Miguel remained standing at the safe, hands at his sides, not touching anything inside, not reaching for cash or watches or documents, just waiting. Clifford's face cycled through shades of red as his brain finally processed the situation. He'd made a public bet. $10 million. In front of 200 witnesses who were currently recording this on their phones. That was... Clifford started, his voice strained. Very clever. Very, clever thinking. He tried to smile. It looked like it hurt. A man in a Navy suit stepped forward. One of the tech CEOs who tried the safe earlier. So you're paying him the $10 million, right, Cliff? That was the deal. The room's energy shifted again. People who'd been laughing with Clifford minutes ago were now watching him with different eyes. Waiting. Judging. Everyone loved a spectacle. But everyone also loved accountability, especially when it made a good story. Clifford's throat worked. You could see the calculations happening behind his eyes. $10 million. On a party bet. To the Maid son. It was a party game, Clifford said, forcing casualness into his tone. Obviously I wasn't serious about. It sounded serious, a woman interrupted. You said $10 million cash right now. We all heard it. It's on like 50 videos already, someone else added, holding up their phone. Pretty sure it already on Instagram. Miguel watched Clifford struggle, watched the billionaire's face reveal what his words wouldn't admit. He'd never imagined this scenario. The bet had been safe because winning was impossible. Now impossibility had a name, and it was standing in front of his open safe. We should discuss this privately, Clifford said, looking at Miguel directly for the first time. Work out something reasonable. You said $10 million, Mr. Dane. Miguel's voice was quiet but clear, not aggressive, not demanding, just stating fact. The room held its breath. Clifford glanced around at the faces watching him. at the phone's recording, at his reputation, cracking in real time on social media. He was trapped between his ego and his public image, and everyone could see it. "Listen, kid." Miguel, Rosa said from the back of the room. She'd been silent until now, trying to stay invisible as she'd learned to do. But hearing her son called kid by the man she'd worked for all these years broke something. "His name is Miguel." Clifford flinched. Several guests looked at Rosa, really looked at her. For the first time that night, Miguel turned to his mother, gave her a small nod of gratitude, then looked back at Clifford. "I don't need an answer now," Miguel said, "but you made a public promise, and everyone here saw me keep my end." The elegance of it landed perfectly. Miguel wasn't threatening, wasn't demanding, just holding up a mirror and letting Clifford see his own reflection. Somewhere in the crowd, someone's phone buzzed. Then another, and another. The video was spreading. #SafeChallenge was starting to trend. The story was escaping the room, reaching beyond Palm Beach, touching millions of people who loved nothing more than watching the powerful get caught in their own traps. Clifford knew it. Everyone knew it. "We'll talk," Clifford said finally, his voice hollow. "After the party. We'll figure something out." It wasn't an agreement. It wasn't a promise. It was the sound of a man retreating. Miguel nodded once, then walked toward his mother. The crowd parted for him like he was royalty, not staff. Someone started clapping, slow, deliberate applause that others joined until the room was filled with the sound of recognition. Not for Clifford this time. For the kid they'd all dismissed without a second thought. Clifford Dane never paid the full $10 million. But he did pay. After 3 days of viral videos, think pieces about wealth and accountability, and enough public pressure to threaten his carefully cultivated brand, Clifford settled with Miguel privately. The exact amount was never disclosed, but sources close to the family suggested it was substantial, enough to cover college, enough to change trajectories. More importantly, the moment created opportunities money couldn't buy. Within a week, Miguel received scholarship offers from MIT, Stanford, and Carnegie Mellon. Google reached out with an internship opportunity. Microsoft invited him to their summer program for emerging tech talent. A venture capital firm specializing in educational technology offered him a mentorship. The story became a case study. Universities use it in business ethics classes. Tech companies cited it in discussions about bias and talent recognition. It spread across continents, translated into dozens of languages, shared by millions of people who saw themselves in Miguel's quiet competence and Clifford's loud assumptions. For Clifford, the moment was more expensive than $10 million. His reputation took a hit he'd never fully recover from. Business partners questioned his judgment. Investors wondered what other blind spots he might have. The man who'd built an empire on projecting infallibility had been humbled by a teenager in 60 seconds. And the internet never let him forget it. But perhaps, and this is speculation, because Clifford never gave interviews about the incident, perhaps he learned something. Perhaps standing in that room, watching the Maid son demonstrate intelligence that Clifford's expensive security team couldn't match, cracked something open, made him see the people he'd treated as invisible. Or perhaps not. Perhaps he just learned to be more careful with public bets. Either way, the lesson landed for everyone watching. Intelligence isn't a luxury good. Talent doesn't require the right last name, the right neighborhood, the right pedigree. Some of the smartest people in any room are the ones nobody's bothering to notice, the ones serving drinks, cleaning offices, working night shifts to fund dreams that don't yet have venture backing. And assumptions? Assumptions are expensive. They cost Clifford his reputation and millions of dollars. But they've cost society so much more. All the Miguel Cortezes who never got a chance to stand in front of safe. All the brilliant minds dismissed because they didn't look like what success was supposed to look like. Miguel chose MIT. Full scholarship. He's studying computer science and ethical AI. Last anyone checked, he was working on security systems that detect pattern vulnerabilities. The kind of weakness he exploited in Clifford's safe. The irony isn't lost on anyone. His mother, Rosa, still works as a housemaid, but by choice now and with better pay. Miguel offered to support her completely, but she likes the work, likes having her own money, likes the families She helps. The difference is they see her now, really see her. And whenever someone asks Miguel about that night, about the moment he cracked the uncrackable safe, he says the same thing. I didn't do anything magical. I just paid attention. People reveal themselves in patterns, if you watch closely enough. It's a lesson Clifford Dane learned the hard way. And maybe that's the real value of the story. Not the money, not the viral moment, but the reminder that the people you overlooked might be the ones who see exactly what you're missing. What would you have done in that moment? Would you have tried the safe, walked away, demanded the full $10 million afterward? Tell us in the comments. I want to hear your take. If you know someone who's been underestimated, someone grinding in the shadows, someone whose intelligence gets dismissed because of their circumstances, share this with them. Sometimes people need to be reminded that brilliance doesn't require anyone's permission to exist. And if you want more stories like this, stories where the underdog doesn't just survive but wins, hit that subscribe button. We find these moments every week. The moments where someone proves that your worth isn't determined by your zip code, your last name, or where you happen to be standing when opportunity shows up. Because Miguel Cortez wasn't special because he was superhuman. He was special because he paid attention, because he was curious, because he refused to accept that being invisible meant being powerless. And that's something every single one of us can do. See you in the next one.